force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and destiny. But what happens when something arrives that exists outside that web? A warrior forged in another universe entirely, bound by no prophecy, touched by no mystical power. The galaxy would soon learn that some threats require no connection to the Force to shake the very foundations of Imperial rule. The rupture tore through real space like a wound in reality itself. No hyperspace signature preceded it. No gravitational anomaly warned of its approach. One moment, the star-flecked void above the outer rim planet of Lotho Minor hung empty and silent. The next, a screaming tear of distorted light vomited forth, twisted metal and burning debris. What remained of a vessel, unrecognizable in design, its hull bearing scorch marks from weapons no Imperial database could identify, tumbled through the atmosphere trailing plasma fire. The crash carved a kilometer-long scar across Lotho Minor's industrial wasteland, sending up plumes of rust-colored dust that would be visible from orbit. Junkers and scavengers who made their meager living picking through the planet's endless mechanical graveyards looked up from their work, already calculating the value of whatever had just fallen from the sky. The local Imperial garrison, a token force of 24 stormtroopers stationed to ensure the Empire received its cut of salvaged materials, mobilized immediately. Sergeant Kyle Torvin led the patrol that reached the crash site first. Through his helmet's targeting system, he scanned the wreckage with growing confusion. The metal was wrong. Composite materials his armor's analysis suite couldn't identify. The architecture was foreign, angles and construction that matched no known starship design from core to rim. This wasn't Rebel technology. It wasn't even close to anything in Imperial records. "Command, this is Ground Team Ulrich," Torvin reported into his comlink. "Crash site secured. Unknown vessel, possibly pre-Republic origin. Requesting engineering support and movement." A section of hull plating, easily 3 metric tons, shifted, then lifted, then was casually tossed aside by something emerging from the wreckage's interior. Torvin's targeting reticle locked onto the figure, and every combat instinct screamed contradictions. The armor was massive, over 2 meters tall, colored in faded green and gold, covered in scorch marks and battle damage that spoke of countless firefights. A golden visor stared back at him, reflective and emotionless. In one gauntleted hand, the figure held a weapon. Bullpup design, substantial magazine, matte black finish. "Identify yourself," Torvan ordered, raising his E11 blaster rifle. His squad followed suit, 24 weapons trained on the single target. The armored figure's helmet turned slowly, assessing each stormtrooper with mechanical precision. When it spoke, the voice was male, filtered through the helmet's external speakers, carrying a tone of absolute calm that somehow made it more unsettling. "Where am I?" Torvin hesitated. The question was too simple, too direct. No plea for help, no panic, no fear, just a tactical query from someone assessing their situation. "You're on Lotho Minor, under jurisdiction of the Galactic Empire. Lower your weapon and submit to Imperial custody for processing." The figure looked down at the rifle in its hands as if noticing it for the first time. Then, instead of lowering it, brought it to a ready position with fluid expertise that made Torvin's finger tighten on his trigger. "I need to establish communications with UNSC Command," the figure stated. "Can you provide access to long-range transmission equipment?" Final warning. Torvin's voice cracked slightly. This wasn't standard protocol. Nothing about this made sense. "Lower your weapon, or we will open fire." The golden visor tilted slightly, and Torvin would swear later he could feel the calculation happening behind it. Then the figure moved. No humanoid should move that fast. one moment standing still, the next in full sprint, not toward cover, but directly at the stormtrooper line. Torvin's squad opened fire, crimson blaster bolts converging on the charging target. Most missed. The ones that connected splashed against shimmering energy barriers that flared gold with each impact, dissipating the plasma before it could reach the armor beneath. Energy shields. Personal energy shields. The Empire had tried for years to miniaturize that technology. This stranger wore it like standard equipment. The figure covered 30 meters in seconds. Torvin barely registered the movement before the armored warrior was among them, and then training gave way to chaos. The rifle in the stranger's hands barked, a staccato mechanical sound completely unlike blaster fire, and Stormtrooper TK-447 went down with smoking holes punched through his chest plate. Another burst, another trooper fell. The weapons report was deafening, primitive chemical propellants driving metal projectiles at hypersonic velocities. But it was the close-quarters combat that truly shattered Torvin's understanding. The figure moved through his squad like a force-sensitive, but wrong, too calculated, too efficient, lacking the flowing grace of a Jedi, but possessing something arguably more terrifying: perfect tactical execution. A stormtrooper swung his rifle like a club. The figure caught it, crushed the barrel in one gauntleted fist, then delivered a palm strike that sent the trooper flying 3 meters backward. When Torvin tried to fall back and call for air support, he found himself lifted off his feet by one hand, held at eye level with that expressionless golden visor. "I don't want to hurt anyone else," the filtered voice said, and somehow Torvin believed the sincerity behind it. "But I will if you force me. Stand down." Torvin's comlink crackled with panicked transmissions from the garrison command. Reinforcements were coming. Walkers were being deployed. The stranger had minutes at best before the Empire's full weight came crashing down. The figure seemed to understand this too. It released Torvin, letting him drop to the ground, then turned back toward the wreckage. "I need to retrieve my AI. After that, I'll leave your planet." "They won't let you," Torvin gasped, watching the armored warrior walk away with absolute confidence. "The Empire doesn't let threats just walk away." The golden visor glanced back over one armored shoulder. "Then the Empire is going to have a problem. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you." Above Lotho Minor's polluted atmosphere, the Imperial Star Destroyer Subjugator received Sergeant Torvin's desperate transmission and adjusted its orbital position. In the ship's command bridge, junior officers scrambled to make sense of conflicting reports. Unknown vessel, unknown hostile, personal shields, combat effectiveness beyond any recorded non-force sensitive. The duty officer flagged the incident for intelligence review and authorized deployment of additional ground forces. In the wreckage below, Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 pulled a damaged data chip from the remains of his neural interface port. Cortana's fragment was intact, barely. The AI would need proper computing infrastructure to fully restore, but the core personality matrix survived the slipspace rupture. He secured the chip in his armor's storage compartment, then surveyed the approaching dust clouds on his motion tracker. More hostiles incoming. These people, whoever they were, didn't value negotiation. That was fine. Spartans were built for war. The ATST walker's footfalls shook the ground in rhythmic thunder as it crested the ridge overlooking the crash site. Lieutenant Veros gripped the walker's control yoke with white-knuckled intensity, his co-pilot scanning their helmet's tactical display for the single target that had somehow decimated an entire squad of stormtroopers. 23 men, dead or incapacitated, in less than 4 minutes. "Target acquired," his co-pilot announced. 200 meters, bearing 047, still at the crash site. Through the viewport, Veros spotted the distinctive green and gold armor standing amid the wreckage, apparently unconcerned by the 30-ton war machine bearing down on its position. Overconfidence. Good. All units converge on target. Authorization to use lethal force. Command wants this threat eliminated before it reaches civilian population centers. The ATST's twin blaster cannons swiveled, targeting lasers painting the armored figure in crimson light. Veros's finger tightened on the firing stud. The target moved, not to cover, not retreating. Sprinting directly toward the walker with impossible speed, zigzagging between blaster bolts that superheated the air where the figure had been microseconds before. Veros fired again, tracking algorithms struggling to predict movement patterns that defied standard tactical doctrine. Then the target was too close, inside the walker's minimum engagement range, and Veros realized his mistake. Metal groaned. The entire ATST lurched as something struck its leg joint with tremendous force. Warning lights flashed across Veros's console. Structural integrity compromised, hydraulic pressure dropping. Through the viewport, he caught a glimpse of the armored warrior, delivering precise strikes to the walker's knee actuator, each blow calculated to exploit mechanical weaknesses. "He's taking us down," the co-pilot screamed. The ATST toppled, and Veros had just enough time to trigger the emergency escape before 30 tons of Imperial hardware crashed onto its side in a shower of sparks and screaming metal. He rolled clear, drew his blaster pistol with shaking hands, and found himself staring at that golden visor once more. "Stay down," the figure ordered, then turned away as more stormtroopers crested the ridge. What followed was a masterclass in combat efficiency that would haunt Veros for the rest of his career. The stranger moved through Imperial formations like they were training simulations, exploiting every tactical error with ruthless precision. When stormtroopers bunched together, the stranger's rifle eliminated multiple targets with burst fire. When they spread out, he engaged them in close quarters, where their blasters became liabilities in tight melee. The energy shields absorbed what few shots connected, buying precious seconds for repositioning. But it was the warrior's complete lack of hesitation that truly set him apart. No wasted movement, no showboating, just efficient, brutal prosecution of combat objectives. This wasn't someone who enjoyed fighting. This was someone who had been engineered for it. A TIE fighter screamed overhead, strafing the crash site with laser cannon fire. The stranger dove, rolled, came up with a chunk of debris in one hand, and hurled it with enough force to actually damage the fighter's solar panel as it passed. The TIE spiraled away, trailing smoke, and Veros understood with crystalline clarity that conventional tactics would not stop this threat. The stranger reached the ridge where Veros's reinforcements had taken position. For a moment, facing 24 armed soldiers, the figure paused. Then that filtered voice cut through the chaos. "Final chance. Let me leave peacefully, or more of you die. Your choice." From somewhere in the Imperial ranks, a nervous trooper opened fire. The stranger's response was immediate and devastating. Aboard the subjugator, Captain Relis reviewed the tactical feed with mounting disbelief. 12% casualties, an entire garrison's worth of troops routed by a single hostile. Impossible. Except he was watching it happen in real time via helmet cam feeds, each stream more damning than the last. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving inquiries from rebel monitoring stations. They've intercepted our distress signals and are requesting information about the armored warrior." Of course they were. The rebellion monitored Imperial communications constantly, always searching for weaknesses to exploit. And now they'd caught wind of something that had thoroughly bloodied an Imperial garrison. Relis could already imagine the propaganda value, evidence that the Empire could be challenged, that their stormtroopers weren't invincible. Jam all local communications, Relis ordered. Deploy a full battalion to the surface. I want that hostile captured alive if possible, neutralized if necessary. And get me a direct line to Imperial intelligence. They'll want to hear about this. On the planet below, Master Chief had reached a decision. These stormtroopers weren't Covenant, weren't even alien despite their dehumanizing armor. They were human, or human enough, which meant he'd killed his own species in the last 10 minutes. The thought sat heavy in his gut, but tactical reality overrode emotional response. They'd fired first. They'd given no opportunity for diplomatic resolution. He'd done what Spartans always did, survived. But now he needed information. Where was he? How had the slipspace rupture brought him here? And most importantly, how did he get back? His motion tracker pinged new contacts approaching from multiple vectors. More soldiers, better equipped. They were adapting, bringing heavier weapons to bear. Chief's ammunition counter read 47 rounds remaining in his MA-5D's magazine, 2 additional mags in reserve. Not enough for a prolonged engagement. Time to change tactics. Chief activated his armor's thruster pack, damaged in the crash but still functional for short bursts, and launched himself toward the nearest settlement, visible on his HUD's mapping system. If he could reach civilian population centers, these soldiers might hesitate to deploy heavy weapons. Give him time to gather intelligence, find technology he could adapt, maybe locate whatever passed for a communications network in this place. The thrusters carried him 300 meters before sputtering out. He hit the ground running, servos in his Mjolnir armor amplifying each stride into distance-eating leaps that covered ground faster than most ground vehicles. Behind him, he heard the telltale whine of aircraft engines spinning up. This galaxy's first encounter with a Spartan II super soldier was not going according to anyone's plan, least of all his own. The cantina in Lotho Minor's primary settlement was the kind of establishment that asked no questions and expected the same courtesy from its patrons. Junkers, off-duty garrison troopers, and the occasional smuggler shared tables in uneasy proximity, united only by cheap liquor and cheaper food. When the door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal, every patron's hand instinctively moved toward concealed weapons. Then they saw what stood in the doorway and collectively decided their weapons wouldn't help. Master Chief swept the room with tactical efficiency, motion tracker confirming no immediate threats, before stepping inside. The golden visor that had terrified an entire Imperial garrison now caused a ripple of whispered confusion through the cantina's patrons. He moved toward the bar, each footfall heavy with the weight of Mjolnir armor, and the crowd parted like water before a ship's prow. "I need information," Chief stated, his filtered voice cutting through the stunned silence. "How do I access your planetary database?" The Rhodian bartender's speech translator stuttered through several languages before settling on basic. The Empire controls all data networks, public terminals at the garrison, but..." He trailed off, large eyes fixating on the dried blood scoring Chief's armor plating. Not an option. Chief's HUD tracked 3 individuals attempting to subtly activate comlinks. Local law enforcement, probably, or bounty hunters sensing opportunity. His hand rested on his rifle. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just need to understand where I am." A voice from the back corner, female, carrying the confident drawl of someone accustomed to danger. "You've caused quite the stir, stranger. Half the Imperial garrison dead, an ATST in pieces, and you walk into Grado's cantina like you're ordering spotchka. Either you're the bravest fool in the Outer Rim, or something else entirely." Chief turned. The woman wore practical spacer's clothing, a DL-44 blaster holstered at her hip, and an expression that managed to convey both amusement and calculation. Behind her, 2 companions, a Wookiee checking a bowcaster and a human male with the scarred hands of a professional soldier. watched Chief with the wariness of people who'd survived by recognizing threats. "You're not Imperial," Chief observed. "Very perceptive." The woman stood, moving with the casual confidence of someone who'd learned to read danger and found Chief fascinating rather than terrifying. "Name's Sarah Keld, independent contractor, which is polite rim speak for I take jobs from whoever pays. You, on the other hand, are the most wanted being on this rock right now. The Empire's offering 50,000 credits for information leading to your capture." Chief's threat assessment subroutines flagged the entire cantina. 15 potential hostiles, various weapons, 2 probable bounty hunters in the far corner, activating tracking devices. But Sarah's body language suggested negotiation rather than immediate violence. "What do you want?" he asked directly. Sarah's grin widened. "Straight to business. I like that. What I want is to know what you are. That armor isn't Mandalorian, isn't Imperial, isn't anything in my considerable database. Those weapons you're carrying spit physical projectiles, which is technology that predates blasters by millennia. And you just carved through trained soldiers like a Force sensitive, except every sensor reading says you're completely absent from the Force. So what are you? A soldier looking for a way home. Home where? What system? What sector?" Chief hesitated. How did you explain that home existed in an entirely different universe? That the UNSC, the Covenant War, everything he'd fought for was separated by dimensional barriers these people couldn't possibly understand? Instead, he deflected. "Somewhere your empire doesn't control. Can you help me access information, or are you stalling until reinforcements arrive?" Sarah's hand moved casually toward her blaster. "Little bit of column A, little bit of column B. See, 50,000 credits would keep my crew flying for 6 months. But I've also survived this long by knowing when someone's more valuable as a friend than a payday. And something tells me someone who can make the Empire look that incompetent might be worth knowing." The cantina door burst open again. Stormtroopers, 6 of them, weapons raised and trained on Chief's back. The lead trooper's vocoder crackled with authority. "All patrons remain seated. Unidentified hostile, you are under arrest by order of..." Chief moved. His rifle came up, not firing but aimed with absolute precision at the lead trooper. Simultaneously, Sarah's hand completed its draw, her DL-44 covering the Imperial flank. The Wookiee's bowcaster swung toward the door. The cantina, which had been contemplating betrayal for credits, suddenly reevaluated their priorities. Nobody wanted to be caught in the crossfire between the Empire and whatever this was becoming. "Lower your weapons," Chief ordered, his tone suggesting this was the only warning they'd receive. The lead stormtrooper's helmet turned slightly, clearly receiving instructions through his comlink. Then, surprisingly, he gestured for his squad to lower their rifles. "Orders from Captain Relis. The hostile is to be tracked but not engaged until reinforcements arrive. All civilians are ordered to evacuate this sector immediately." It was a tactical gambit Chief recognized. Clear the civilians, remove any incentive for him to avoid collateral damage, then deploy heavy weapons without restraint. Smart, if predictable. "Well," Sarah said conversationally, her blaster still drawn, but no longer aimed at anyone specific. "Looks like you've got the Empire's full attention now, which means you've got maybe 10 minutes before this entire settlement becomes a kill zone." She glanced at Chief, head tilted evaluatively. "So here's my offer. My ship's docked 2 kilometers from here. I can get you off this rock and somewhere the Empire won't immediately vaporize you. In exchange, you tell me your story. All of it. Deal?" Chief's tactical assessment ran through scenarios. Stay here, surrounded, outgunned once heavy armor arrived, 0 intelligence about this galaxy. Go with Sarah. Potential betrayal, but access to transportation and information. Unknown variables versus certain engagement with overwhelming force. The Spartan in him trusted no one. The soldier recognized strategic value in temporary alliances. What about them? Chief gestured toward the stormtroopers still blocking the door. Sarah's grin turned predatory. Leave that to me. Folks on Lotho Minor don't much care for the Empire's tax collectors. Grudo? The Rhodian bartender nodded, then triggered something beneath the bar. Every light in the cantina cut out simultaneously, plunging the space into complete darkness. Chief's visor switched to thermal imaging instantly, tracking heat signatures as chaos erupted. Blaster fire strobed in the darkness, wild panicked shots from the stormtroopers as cantina patrons who'd tolerated Imperial presence but never loved it seized the opportunity for payback. Sarah's hand found Chief's armored forearm with surprising accuracy. This way. Stay close. They moved through the cantina's back exit, the Wookiee and human soldier providing covering fire as stormtrooper reinforcements converged on the building's front. Chief's motion tracker painted a tapestry of hostile contacts, 20, 30, more arriving every second. Above, he detected the distinctive engine signature of aerial units taking position. Your ship better be fast, Chief said, matching pace with Sarah as they sprinted through Lotho Minor's industrial maze. Fast enough, though I'd feel better if you'd tell me what exactly the Empire thinks you are. The chatter I'm intercepting suggests they're treating this like a force-sensitive containment operation. I don't know what that means. Sarah shot him a sideways glance, still running. You really aren't from around here, are you? An explosion rocked the settlement behind them. Chief glanced back to see the cantina engulfed in flames. Imperial response, eliminating everyone who'd witnessed the encounter. Excessive, brutal, efficient. Familiar tactics from the Covenant War. Eliminate witnesses, control information, deny your enemy any advantage. Except here, Chief was the enemy. These humans, because despite their unfamiliar technology, they were clearly human, had branded him a threat worthy of extermination. The realization settled into his tactical framework with uncomfortable clarity. In this galaxy, he was alone. No UNSC, no Spartans, no chain of command. Just a soldier who'd been built for a war that didn't exist here, fighting people who should have been allies. There, Sarah pointed toward a freighter docked at the settlement's edge. Modified YT series light freighter, Chief's tactical database supplied with surprising accuracy from what little he'd observed. Atmospheric capable, hyperspace equipped, armed with what appeared to be laser cannon turrets. They were 50 meters from the boarding ramp when TIE fighters screamed overhead, strafing the docking bay with emerald laser fire. Chief grabbed Sarah, his armor's strength allowing him to bodily carry her behind a stack of cargo containers as superheated air washed over their position. They're trying to disable the ship, Sarah shouted over the screaming engines. Chief assessed the situation with practiced calm. 2 TIE fighters circling for another pass, ground forces converging from multiple vectors. The freighter was their only escape, but reaching it required crossing 50 meters of open ground under air superiority. Not impossible, just improbable. Spartans specialized in the improbable. Can you fly that ship remotely? Chief asked. Got a droid in the cockpit, yeah. Why? Oh no. Whatever you're thinking, it's suicide. Chief checked his rifle. 23 rounds remaining. Not enough. He ejected the magazine, pulled one of his 2 fragmentation grenades from his belt, and made a decision that would have made any UNSC tactical instructor proud. Get to the ship. I'll handle the fighters. Then he was sprinting toward open ground, drawing fire deliberately, trusting his shields to hold long enough for what came next. The subjugator's meditation chamber existed in perpetual twilight, illuminated only by the faint crimson glow of emergency lighting and the occasional flicker of surveillance holograms. It was here that the Inquisitor, known as the Eighth Brother, cultivated his connection to the dark side, practicing the aggressive lightsaber forms that had made him feared across 3 sectors. Today, his meditation was interrupted. "You summoned me, Captain Relis." The Inquisitor's voice carried the subtle hiss that came from too many years breathing recycled air aboard Star Destroyers. The hologram projector activated, bathing the chamber in pale blue light. Captain Relis's image materialized, his expression professionally neutral, but his posture betraying tension. "We have a situation on Lotho Minor that requires your particular expertise." The Eighth Brother's yellow eyes narrowed with interest. "A force sensitive?" "That's unclear." Relis hesitated, an unusual tell from an experienced officer. "Approximately 3 hours ago, an unidentified vessel emerged from what our sensors registered as a spatial anomaly. Not hyperspace, something else entirely. A single armored hostile emerged from the wreckage and has since neutralized 47 stormtroopers, destroyed 3 ATSTs, and damaged 2 TIE fighters." "Impressive." The Eighth Brother's interest sharpened. "But hardly worthy of inquisitorial attention. Send a battalion." "We have. He's avoiding them." Relis activated combat footage, and the Eighth Brother watched with growing fascination as green and gold armor moved through Imperial formations with brutal efficiency. Notice the combat style. No wasted movement, perfect target prioritization, reaction times that suggest precognition. But here's the anomaly. Relis highlighted biometric data streaming across the bottom of the footage. "We're reading 0 force presence, not diminished, not hidden. 0, as if the force simply doesn't touch this individual." The Eighth Brother stepped closer to the hologram, studying the warrior's movements with the analytical eye of someone trained to detect force-sensitive threats. The captain was correct. The combat efficiency resembled a Jedi or Sith, but the execution was wrong. Too mechanical, too calculated. Force sensitives, even the most disciplined, carried a certain fluidity to their movements, an unconscious connection to the living force that guided their actions. This warrior moved like a droid mimicking organic life, effective but soulless. "What do you want from me?" the Eighth Brother asked, already knowing the answer, but enjoying the moment of power as an Imperial officer deferred to him. "Capture him, interrogate him, determine if he's a threat to Imperial interests or a potential asset. The Emperor has certain programs that could benefit from studying this individual's capabilities." Translation: Palpatine wanted to dissect this warrior's secrets, possibly replicate his abilities for Imperial super soldier programs. The Eighth Brother had seen similar projects, attempts to create force-resistant assassins, loyalty-conditioned operatives, biological weapons disguised as humans. Most failed. Some succeeded in ways that made even Inquisitors uncomfortable. "He won't survive interrogation if he resists," the Eighth Brother warned. "Prioritize capture, but if elimination becomes necessary..." Relis left the sentence unfinished, granting implicit authorization for lethal force. The Eighth Brother deactivated the hologram with a gesture, mind already calculating approach vectors. 47 stormtroopers, 3 walkers, 2 fighters. Either this warrior possessed capabilities beyond current Imperial intelligence, or the garrison was embarrassingly incompetent. Perhaps both. Regardless, the hunt would be instructive. And if this anomaly truly existed outside the Force's influence, well, that made him perhaps the most dangerous being the Eighth Brother had ever hunted. Force-blind opponents were unpredictable, their futures unreadable through precognition, their actions immune to subtle force manipulation. It would be refreshing to face genuine uncertainty again. "Prepare my personal shuttle," the eighth brother commanded to no one in particular, confident his orders would be relayed through the ship's surveillance systems. "And inform ground forces. The target is mine. Any trooper who engages without authorization will answer to me." Below, on Lotho Miner's industrial surface, Master Chief was discovering that TIE fighters possessed one critical weakness: no shields. Their speed and maneuverability made them effective against capital ships and slower starfighters, but against a ground target who understood ballistic trajectories and predictive firing solutions, they became vulnerable. Chief tracked the lead TIE's attack vector, calculated speed and angle, then threw his fragmentation grenade not where the fighter was, but where it would be in 3 seconds. The grenade's arc was perfect, a trajectory that would have made his old Spartan instructors nod with approval. It reached apex just as the TIE fighter screamed through that exact point of space. The explosion ripped through the TIE's portside solar panel, destabilizing its flight path. The pilot, trained for space combat, overcorrected. The fighter clipped a docking crane, spiraled wildly, then impacted the settlement's main power generator in a fireball that knocked Chief off his feet despite his armor's stabilization systems. The second TIE fighter, witnessing its wingman's destruction, broke off its attack run and climbed rapidly, reassessing the threat. Smart pilot. Unfortunately for him, Chief had already sprinted the remaining distance to Sarah's freighter, the Nomad's Gambit, and was scrambling up the boarding ramp as blaster fire from pursuing stormtroopers scored the hull plating. "Go!" Chief roared, slamming his palm against the ramp control. The freighter's engines howled to life, and Chief felt the deck lurch beneath him as Sarah executed an atmospheric launch that would have violated every UNSC safety protocol ever written. Through the closing ramp, he glimpsed stormtroopers diving for cover as the Gambit's repulsor wash sent cargo containers tumbling like toys. Then they were airborne, acceleration pressing Chief against the bulkhead with enough force that even his augmented physiology felt it. His HUD displayed rapidly changing altitude readings, 300 meters, 500, 800, and through the ramp's narrowing gap, he saw the remaining TIE fighter giving chase. The ramp sealed with a pressurized hiss. Chief activated his magnetic boots, anchoring himself to the deck, then staggered toward the cockpit. The Gambit's interior was cramped, cluttered with spare parts and modifications that spoke of a crew constantly one breakdown away from disaster. He found Sarah in the pilot's seat, hands dancing across controls with practiced expertise, while her Wookiee companion manned the gun turret above. "Strap in," Sarah shouted without looking back. "Once we hit upper atmosphere, the Star Destroyer's tractor beams will try to grab us. We've got maybe 30 seconds to make the jump to hyperspace. Assuming you didn't permanently damage my jump drives with whatever you did to my ship." "I didn't touch your ship." "Then why are my shield generators running at 40% capacity?" Chief checked his motion tracker. The remaining TIE fighter was closing fast, and now additional contacts appeared on sensors. More fighters launching from the Star Destroyer, attempting to intercept before the Gambit could escape. "Do you have a destination?" "Working on it. My Navi-computer needs a minute to calculate." "You don't have a minute." Laser fire lanced past the cockpit viewport, close enough that Chief saw the Gambit's shields flare bright blue against the superheated plasma. Sarah cursed in 3 languages, threw the freighter into a barrel roll that should have torn the ship apart, and somehow ended up on a new vector that temporarily broke the TIE's targeting lock. "Listen, strange armored man whose name I still don't know. I'm a good pilot, but I'm not suicidal. The Empire's got this system locked down. We need a hyperspace route that won't drop us into an asteroid field or a sun, and that takes..." Chief's hand shot out, fingers dancing across the Navi-computer with surprising dexterity for someone in powered armor. Numbers scrolled past, coordinates, vectors, gravitational calculations. His neural interface with Cortana had taught him to process navigational mathematics at computer speeds. These systems were different, but the underlying physics were close enough. There. He pulled up a route that the Navy computer flagged with multiple warning indicators. That jump will work. Sarah stared at the proposed course, her expression cycling through disbelief, calculation, then grudging respect. That route goes through a debris field, skims a planet's gravity well, and requires 3 consecutive micro-jumps. Nobody flies that course because it's insane. Can you do it? The TIE fighter opened fire again. The Wookiee's bowcaster turret roared in response, actual physical projectiles that caught the Imperial pilot by surprise. One hit penetrated the viewport, and the TIE spiraled away, trailing atmosphere. Sarah's hands moved to the hyperspace controls. Strap in, mysterious soldier. If we survive this, you're buying drinks and telling me everything, starting with your name. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117. You can call me Chief. Chief. Sarah tested the name, then grinned, the expression of someone who decided danger was better than boredom. Welcome to the galaxy, Chief. Hold on to something. The stars stretched, reality compressed. The Gambit punched through the dimensional barrier into hyperspace, leaving Lotho Minor, an angry Imperial Star Destroyer, and the Eighth Brother's planned interrogation far behind. In the meditation chamber aboard the subjugator, the Eighth Brother felt the disturbance, not in the Force, but in the hunting instinct that had kept him alive through countless battles. His quarry had escaped, for now. He activated his personal comm. Relay to all Imperial intelligence stations. I want tracking information on any vessel that left Lotho Minor in the last 10 minutes. Flag all known rebel sympathizers, smugglers, and independent contractors operating in this sector. The anomaly is aboard one of their ships. The target has a name, an aide reported. Intercepted communications identified him as Chief. The Eighth Brother's lips pulled back in something that might have been a smile. Chief, how appropriate. Very well, Chief. Run. The galaxy is vast, but the Empire's reach is vaster, and I do so enjoy the hunt. He deactivated his lightsaber, which had been ignited unconsciously during the conversation, and returned to his meditation chamber. This hunt would require patience, strategic thinking, and a willingness to pursue prey across multiple systems. Good. The Eighth Brother had grown tired of easy quarry. Somewhere in hyperspace, aboard a battered freighter with shield generators whining from overuse, Master Chief stood in the Nomad's Gambit's cockpit and watched impossible light streak past the viewport. Faster than light travel without Shaw Fujikawa engines. Technology that bordered on fantastical. So, Sarah said, adjusting their hyperspace trajectory with minute course corrections. Want to tell me why the Empire's throwing capital ships at one soldier? Because standard protocol for even dangerous Force sensitives is a cruiser at most. They deployed a Star Destroyer for you. Chief considered his answer carefully. These people didn't know about the UNSC, the Covenant War, or the slipspace rupture that had stranded him here. Revealing too much could make him more of a target. But Sarah had saved him, and operational security had to be balanced against tactical necessity. I'm not from your empire, he said finally. Not from any faction in this galaxy. The ship that crashed, it was thrown here from somewhere else, somewhere your people have never been. Sarah processed that. Her pilot's instincts reading the sincerity in his filtered voice. You're saying you're from outside the known galaxy, like wild space, unknown regions. Farther than that. How much farther are we talking? Chief looked at the hyperspace tunnel surrounding them, a technology that should be impossible in a galaxy that shouldn't exist. Far enough that I don't know if I can get back. The words hung in the cockpit's recycled air, heavy with implications. Sarah studied him. The battered armor, the quiet intensity, the absolute certainty that this soldier had seen battles she couldn't imagine. Then she nodded. Decision made. "Well, Chief, looks like you're going to need a guide. Lucky for you, I know people. Questionable people mostly, but people who might be able to help you figure out where you are and how to get home. Assuming the Empire doesn't vaporize us first. They'll try." "Yeah." Sarah grinned, and Chief recognized the expression from countless Marines who'd faced impossible odds and decided to laugh instead of breaking. "They usually do. Welcome to the Outer Rim, soldier. Things are about to get interesting." Behind them, through dimensions neither of them could perceive, the Force rippled with disturbance. Not because it sensed Chief. He remained invisible to its touch, a void where life should register. But because his presence had already begun changing the galaxy's carefully balanced equation. Jedi and Sith alike would soon sense that something fundamental had shifted, though none would understand what. In the depths of space, aboard vessels loyal to a rebellion that would not surrender, monitoring stations intercepted garbled Imperial transmissions about an armored warrior who'd humiliated an entire garrison. The reports were fragmented, contradictory, almost certainly exaggerated, but they were intriguing enough to warrant further investigation. And far away, in a location known only to the rebellion's highest command, a decision was made. Find this warrior, determine if he was threat, ally, or something else entirely. The galaxy's delicate balance had been disrupted by something outside the Force's influence. What came next would determine whether that disruption meant salvation or catastrophe. Or perhaps both. The Nomad's gambit dropped out of hyperspace 3 parsecs from any registered system, drifting in the empty dark between stars where only smugglers and those avoiding Imperial attention dared venture. Chief stood in the cramped cargo hold, methodically field-stripping his MA-5D assault rifle by the light of overhead maintenance lamps. 17 rounds remaining, 2 magazines, not enough for sustained combat. Problem? Sarah leaned against the bulkhead, watching with professional interest as Chief examined each component with practiced precision. Ammunition. These rounds are caseless, 7.62x 51mm. Your weapons use plasma cartridges and Tibana gas, incompatible technology. So you're saying that terrifying rifle is about to become an expensive club? Chief reassembled the weapon with fluid efficiency, each piece clicking into place with satisfying mechanical certainty. I adapt. Your blasters, how do they work? Sarah unholstered her DL-44, ejecting the power pack with practiced ease. Energized Tibana gas, magnetically contained, converted to plasma on firing. Each pack's good for maybe 50 shots depending on power setting. Not as precise as whatever ancient tech you're using, but they don't run out of ammunition if you've got spare packs. Chief accepted the blaster, testing its weight and balance. Lighter than the MA-5D, less recoil, but the lack of tangible feedback disturbed him. A weapon should have weight, consequence. This felt like holding a laser pointer. I'll need to practice. Yeah, about that. Sarah holstered her weapon, expression shifting to business. We're about 3 hours from Rannon Station, neutral territory. Technically, which means the Empire pretends not to notice the smuggling, and the smugglers pretend to pay their tariffs. I've got contacts there who might help. But first, you need to understand something about the galaxy you're stuck in. The Wookiee, Kraltor, Chief had learned, descended from the gun turret, carrying a data pad that displayed star charts marked with territorial boundaries. Sarah activated the holographic display, and Chief found himself staring at a galaxy-wide map painted in crimson and scattered pockets of resistance. This is the Galactic Empire, Sarah began, highlighting the vast red territories. Emperor Palpatine's been in power for about 20 years. give or take. Before that, there was the Galactic Republic, a democracy that supposedly lasted 1,000 generations. The Emperor was Chancellor back then, manipulated a war between the Republic and separatist systems, then used that war to declare himself Emperor and hunt down the Jedi. Jedi. Chief filed the term alongside dozens of others he'd heard without context. Peacekeepers, warrior monks, people who could use something called the Force, an energy field that supposedly binds the galaxy together. They had abilities that looked like magic, telekinesis, precognition, enhanced reflexes, mind manipulation. The Empire exterminated most of them, branded them traitors. Now the Emperor uses corrupted Jedi called Inquisitors to hunt down survivors. Chief thought of the eighth brother, the yellow eyes that had studied combat footage with predatory interest. The one hunting me is an Inquisitor. Probably. Which means you've graduated from dangerous nuisance to priority target. Inquisitors are relentless. They'll chase you across the galaxy if they think you're Force-sensitive or worth studying. I'm not Force-sensitive. Your people confirm that. Sarah's expression turned calculating. Which makes you even more interesting. See, the Force touches everyone to some degree. Even people who can't use it still register on sensors, still exist within its flow. But you're blank, a void. That's unprecedented. And unprecedented things make the Empire nervous. Chief processed the information, tactical subroutines adapting to a galaxy where mysticism held equal weight with technology. The UNSC dealt in concrete threats, Covenant plasma, nuclear weapons, slipspace mechanics. This galaxy operated on principles that defied his training. These rebels you mentioned, they're fighting the Empire. The Rebel Alliance, yeah. Guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run tactics, trying to restore the Republic. They're outnumbered, outgunned, but they've got spirit. And they monitor Imperial communications constantly, which means they definitely heard about you. Sarah paused, choosing her next words carefully. They'll want to recruit you. Someone who can make the Empire look that incompetent? That's propaganda gold. I don't fight for propaganda. What do you fight for? The question was simple, but the answer was complicated. Chief had fought for humanity, for Earth, for the survival of his species against an enemy that wanted humanity extinct. But here, in a galaxy where humanity wasn't endangered, where the threats were political rather than existential. I fight to complete the mission, Chief said finally. Right now, my mission is getting home. Fair enough, but until you figure out how to do that, you're going to need allies, credits, information. Maybe a better understanding of what the hell you walked into when you crashed on Lotho Minor. Kraltor growled something that Chief's armor translated poorly, but the intent was clear. Trust was earned, not given. The Wookiee had been watching Chief carefully, assessing threat levels, probably wondering if rescuing this stranger would get his crew killed. I won't bring unnecessary trouble, Chief said, addressing the Wookiee directly. But I won't run from fights that matter either. Sarah laughed, the sound sharp and genuine. Chief, you brought trouble the moment you fell out of the sky. The question is whether that trouble's worth the entertainment value. Speaking of which, she pulled up another holographic display, this one showing a grainy image of Chief's armor captured from Imperial surveillance. We need to do something about your appearance. That armor makes you memorable, and memorable gets you killed in the Outer Rim. Chief looked down at his Mjolnir suit, the green and gold plating that had protected him through dozens of campaigns. Sarah was right. The armor's distinctive appearance would mark him instantly. But removing it meant losing his shields, his enhanced strength, his tactical systems. I can modify the external appearance, Chief offered. Change the color scheme, add plating to alter the silhouette. but the armor stays functional. Works for me. Kraltor's decent with metal fabrication. We've got some spare Durasteel plating from a salvage job last month. Won't be pretty, but it'll make you less recognizable. Sarah deactivated the hologram, then met Chief's visor with surprising directness. One more thing. The Empire's offering a bounty for you. 50,000 credits, possibly more by now. That's enough money to make even honest people consider betrayal. Watch your back on Rannon Station. Not everyone's as charming and trustworthy as me. Chief's threat assessment protocols flagged the warning, adding it to the growing list of complications. Bounty hunters, Imperial forces, Inquisitors, and a mysterious energy field that apparently governed this galaxy's logic. The tactical situation was degrading faster than he could adapt, but Spartans were built for degrading tactical situations. How long until we reach Rannon Station? Chief asked. 3 hours. Enough time for Kraltor to weld some plating onto your armor and for you to get some rest. You've been running on adrenaline since the crash. Chief wanted to argue that Spartans didn't need rest, that he could function at combat effectiveness for days without sleep. But his medical readouts told a different story. The slip space rupture, the crash, the sustained combat. His body was operating on reserves. Wake me if the situation changes, Chief said, then made his way to the cargo hold's corner where Sarah indicated he could rest. As he powered down his armor's non-essential systems and allowed exhaustion to finally claim him, Chief's last conscious thought was of Cortana. The AI fragment remained dormant in his armor's storage, waiting for proper computing infrastructure to restore her fully. He'd need her insight for what came next, because navigating this galaxy blind was a tactical disadvantage he couldn't afford to maintain. Rannon Station sprawled across 3 interconnected asteroids, a monument to pragmatic engineering and criminal enterprise. Docking bays carved into rock faces welcomed ships from across the outer rim, no questions asked, provided docking fees were paid promptly. The station's marketplace occupied a massive central cavern, vendors hawking everything from legal starship components to decidedly illegal spice shipments under flickering neon signs. Chief descended the Gambit's boarding ramp, wearing his modified armor. Kraltor had done impressive work. Durasteel plating welded over the Mjolnir's distinctive surfaces, irregular angles breaking up the silhouette, the whole assembly painted in matte gray that matched countless mercenary armor sets throughout the station. Not perfect camouflage, but sufficient to avoid immediate recognition. Stay close, Sarah advised, her hand resting casually on her DL-44. Rannon's neutral, but that just means everyone's equally likely to stab you for credits. We're meeting an information broker named Vex Raylan. He owes me a favor, and he's got connections that might help figure out what your slip space rupture actually was. The marketplace assaulted Chief's sensors with overwhelming stimuli. Dozens of species he'd never encountered. Languages his armor's translation protocols struggled to parse. Technology that ranged from advanced to primitively dangerous. His threat assessment subroutines flagged half the crowd as potentially hostile, which meant either his programming needed calibration or this station was as dangerous as Sarah suggested. Probably both. They navigated through the crowd toward a cantina built into the asteroid's natural rock formations. The entrance was guarded by 2 Gamorrean thugs who eyeballed Chief's armor with professional interest before waving them through. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with smoke from a dozen different substances, the clientele consisting of smugglers, bounty hunters, and individuals whose professions were best left unspecified. Sarah led them to a private booth in the back, where a Duros with cybernetic eye implants sat reviewing data streams projected from a wrist-mounted device. He looked up as they approached, his enhanced eyes focusing on Chief with unsettling intensity. "Sarah Keld," the Duros said, his voice carrying electronic harmonics from a vocal synthesizer. You've been busy. The entire Outer Rim's buzzing about an armored warrior who humiliated the Empire on Lotho Minor. Tell me you weren't foolish enough to get involved. Define involved. Sarah slid into the booth with practiced ease. Vex Raylan, meet my new associate. He needs information. Vex's cybernetic eyes cycled through different optical modes, scanning Chief with technology that made his armor's threat warnings spike. Fascinating. Your armor's reading as a composite of unknown alloys, energy signatures that don't match any known shielding technology, and... Vex paused, his expression shifting to genuine confusion. You don't register on force detection equipment at all. Not diminished, not hidden, absent. We've established that, Chief said flatly. What I need to know is whether spatial anomalies are common in this galaxy, specifically, dimensional rifts that could transport objects from outside your known space. Vex leaned back, processing the question with visible interest. You're claiming to be from outside the galaxy entirely? Bold, also potentially insane. But let's pretend I believe you. Spatial anomalies occur, yes. Hyperspace malfunctions, gravitic distortions near black holes, ancient Sith alchemy that tears holes in reality. But dimensional rifts, transportation from entirely separate realities, that's theoretical at best. It happened. So you say. Vex activated his wrist device, pulling up star charts marked with notation only he could read. There are legends, though, old stories from before the Empire. The Jedi archives contained references to something called the World Between Worlds, a nexus dimension where past, present, and future supposedly intersected. Emperor Palpatine's been obsessed with finding it, believes it grants power over time itself. If something like that exists, maybe other dimensional pathways do too. Chief filed the information, though mystical dimensions sounded more like religious mythology than tactical intelligence. Still, in a galaxy where the Force apparently allowed telekinesis and precognition, dismissing anything as impossible would be tactically unsound. Can you find information about recent spatial anomalies? Anything unusual in the 3 days before I arrived? I can try, but that kind of data costs, and Imperial astrophysics research is heavily classified. We're talking serious slicing into secure networks, which means serious risk. Vex's cybernetic eyes focused on Chief with calculating intensity. What's it worth to you? 50,000 credits, a new voice interrupted. That's the current bounty on this one's head, dead or alive. Chief's hand moved toward the stolen blaster at his hip, but froze as he registered the figure standing behind their booth. Mandalorian armor, painted in weathered crimson and black, T-visor reflecting the cantina's dim lighting. A Westar 35 blaster pistol aimed with professional steadiness at Chief's center mass. Easy, the Mandalorian said, her voice filtered through her helmet's vocoder. I'm not here to collect, just wanted to confirm I found the right target before we have a conversation. Sarah's hand was on her DL-44, but drawing against someone who already had weapon raised was suicide. You've got 30 seconds to explain why we shouldn't turn this into a firefight. Because I'm not working for the Empire. The Mandalorian holstered her pistol with deliberate slowness, a gesture of temporary truce. Name's Kira Ordo, and I've got a proposition for your mysterious friend. Chief assessed the threat. Mandalorian. Sarah had mentioned them briefly. Warrior culture with advanced armor technology. This one moved with confidence that suggested extensive combat training. What kind of proposition? The kind where you demonstrate whether that armor's earned through skill or just impressive technology. Mandalorians respect strength. Show me you're worthy of walking around in battle gear, and I'll tell you something about your arrival that the Empire doesn't want anyone knowing. This is a terrible idea, Sarah muttered. though her tactical mind was clearly evaluating the potential intelligence value. Chief studied the Mandalorian, reading body language even through armor. She wasn't lying. Whatever information she possessed, she genuinely wanted to test his combat capability first. It was inefficient, but it was also straightforward. He could respect that. What kind of demonstration? The station's got fighting pits, bare-handed combat, no weapons, first to yield or get knocked unconscious. You win, I tell you what I know. You lose, you answer my questions about where you really came from. Chief's tactical assessment ran scenarios. Risk, moderate. Potential intelligence gain, significant. Alternative options, limited. He'd been operating blind since arriving in this galaxy. Any information was valuable. Agreed, Sarah groaned. Of course you agreed. Kraltor, start calculating our escape routes. This is going to go sideways. The Wookiee growled something that Chief's translator rendered as philosophical resignation about humans and their tendency toward violence. But Kraltor was already scanning exits, positioning himself where he could provide covering fire if the situation deteriorated. Kira Ordo's helmet tilted, suggesting a smile behind the T-visor. Follow me. And stranger, don't hold back. Mandalorians don't respect mercy in the fighting pits. As they moved through the cantina toward the station's lower levels where the fighting pits waited, Chief noticed the crowd parting before them. Word was spreading fast. A Mandalorian had challenged the mysterious armored stranger. In a place like Rannon Station, that meant entertainment and gambling opportunities. Chief's HUD tracked dozens of civilians following at a distance, weapons concealed but present. The tactical situation was degrading again, but for different reasons this time. He was about to learn whether Spartan training translated to a galaxy's entirely different combat culture. The fighting pit occupied a natural cavern deep within Rannon Station's asteroid core, the rock walls scarred from decades of combat, and the air thick with the smell of sweat, blood, and ozone from occasional blaster discharge. Crude lighting rigs cast harsh shadows across the circular arena where combatants settled disputes the old-fashioned way. Chief estimated 200 spectators crowding the elevated walkways, their voices creating a cacophony of bets and speculation. Kira Ordo stood opposite him in the pit, her Mandalorian armor stripped down to the underlayer, flexible bodysuit that provided protection without restricting movement. Chief had done the same, removing his Mjolnir's outer plating to reveal the black tech suit beneath. His shields remained active, but at minimal output. Fair fight, as much as any Spartan understood fairness. Your armor's impressive, Kira said, rolling her shoulders in preparation. Custom work. I've never seen design patterns like that. It's from home. Chief settled into ready stance, weight balanced, every muscle prepared for explosive movement. His Spartan augmentations gave him advantages. Faster reflexes, enhanced strength, bone density that made him nearly unbreakable. But this Mandalorian moved with the confidence of someone who'd survived hundreds of fights. Underestimating her would be a mistake. A Rhodian bookmaker shouted final odds, credits exchanging hands with frantic energy. Then the fight began without ceremony, Kira launching herself forward with aggression that would have overwhelmed most opponents. Chief sidestepped, letting her momentum carry past him, then countered with a strike toward her exposed ribs. Fast, precise, calculated to test her defenses. Kira twisted mid-motion, catching his arm and using his own force to attempt a throw. Chief's mass and augmented strength made him nearly impossible to move, but the technique was sound. He disengaged, reset, reassessed. This wasn't going to be easy. They circled each other, the crowd's noise fading into background static as Chief's tactical focus narrowed to immediate threat assessment. Kira feinted left, struck right, her movements carrying the brutal efficiency of someone trained from childhood. Chief blocked, countered, felt her reinforced gloves impact his forearm with enough force to crack unaugmented bone. The exchange accelerated. Strike, block, counter. Kira fought with controlled aggression, targeting weak points, joints, anywhere his tech suit's protection was minimal. Chief responded with Spartan combat doctrine, economical movements, overwhelming force applied precisely. He caught her next strike, twisted, threw her backward with enough force to crack the pit's stone floor where she landed. She rolled through the impact, came up grinning behind her helmet. Better. Let's see what else you've got. What followed was a masterclass in two entirely different combat philosophies colliding. Kira's Mandalorian training emphasized adaptability, using environmental advantages, wearing opponents down through relentless pressure. Chief's Spartan doctrine focused on overwhelming force, perfect tactical execution, ending fights decisively. Chief landed a solid hit to her midsection, felt her armor's underlayer absorb most of the impact, but still drove her back 3 steps. She responded with a combination that forced him defensive, her strikes targeting his visor, his throat, vulnerable areas with surgical precision. The crowd roared with each exchange, credits flowing as odds shifted. Sarah watched from the elevated walkway, her expression cycling between impressed and concerned. Kraltor growled commentary that probably translated to something about humans and their inexplicable need to hit each other for entertainment. 5 minutes in, both fighters showed signs of fatigue. Chief's augmented physiology could fight for hours, but Kira's conditioning was equally impressive. She'd earned every scar hidden beneath that armor. "You're good," Kira admitted between exchanges. "Better than good." "Military training?" "Something like that." Chief caught her next strike, pulled her off balance, drove his knee toward her midsection. She twisted, took the hit on her armored hip instead, used the contact to grapple close, where his reach advantage disappeared. They grappled, strength against technique, Spartan augmentation against Mandalorian determination. Chief could end this, use his full strength, crush ribs, break bones. But something made him hesitate. This wasn't an enemy. This was a test. And tests weren't won through overwhelming force alone. He disengaged, took a calculated step back. Kira noticed, helmet tilting with curiosity. "Holding back?" she asked. "Calculating whether seriously injuring you serves my tactical objectives." "Pragmatic. I can respect that." Kira reset her stance. But the aggression had shifted to something more evaluative. "You fight like someone who's seen real war, not arena fights or back alley disputes, the kind of war where hesitation gets you killed." "I have." "Against who?" Chief thought of the Covenant, of plasma burning through ship hulls, of humanity's near extinction. "Enemies that wanted my species extinct. We fought for survival." The admission hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. The crowd's noise felt distant, irrelevant. This had stopped being about the fight and become something else. Recognition between warriors who'd both stared into existential darkness. Kira lowered her guard fractionally. "I yield." The crowd's reaction was immediate. Shock, anger from those who'd bet against the Mandalorian, confusion at the sudden cessation. Chief remained in ready stance. Threat assessment protocols flagging the possibility of deception. "You yield?" he confirmed. "You proved what I needed to see." Kira straightened, her body language shifting from combatant to something approaching respect. "You're not just wearing impressive armor. You earned it through combat that would break most beings in this galaxy. That's worthy of Mandalorian respect." She climbed out of the pit, gesturing for Chief to follow. The crowd dispersed, disappointed by the anticlimactic ending, but already moving toward the next source of entertainment. Chief retrieved his armor plating, reconnecting systems with practiced efficiency. Sarah intercepted them outside the pit, expression caught between relief and exasperation. That was either the smartest or stupidest thing you've done since arriving in this galaxy. I genuinely can't decide which. He passed the test, Kira said simply. Now I'll honor my agreement. The information I have about your arrival, the Empire's not just hunting you because you killed their troops. 3 days before you crashed, Imperial deep space monitoring stations detected a massive energy spike in the outer rim. Something tore through the fabric of space itself, triggered sensors that are supposed to detect hyperspace anomalies and force disturbances. Except this was neither. Chief's attention sharpened. What kind of energy? Unknown. The readings were classified immediately, flagged for the Emperor's personal review. But I've got contacts in Imperial intelligence who owe me favors. They said the energy signature matched nothing in any Imperial database. Not Sith alchemy, not ancient technology. Nothing. It was completely alien. That was my arrival, Chief confirmed. The slip space rupture. Slip space, Kira tested the term. Never heard of it. But whatever it was, it scared the Empire badly enough that they mobilized Inquisitors and Star Destroyers to investigate. They think you're connected to something bigger, maybe a new threat, maybe a weapon they can exploit. Chief processed the tactical implications. The Empire wasn't just hunting him for killing stormtroopers. They viewed him as a potential asset or existential threat. That meant they'd dedicate serious resources to his capture. There's more, Kira continued. The Rebel Alliance intercepted the same readings. They're looking for you too. Sent agents to Lotho Minor, but arrived too late. By now, they've probably tracked you here to Rannon Station. As if summoned by her words, an explosion rocked the station's upper levels. Alarms blared, emergency lighting flashing. Through the chaos, Chief's motion tracker painted new contacts, organized movement patterns, military precision. Empire, Sarah asked, her weapon drawn. Kira checked her helmet's internal display. Worse, bounty hunters. Someone leaked your location, and half the guild just decided 50,000 credits is worth storming a neutral station. Chief's threat assessment subroutines calculated odds, escape routes, defensive positions. The fighting pit's lower levels offered limited options, but the chaos above provided cover. We need to reach your ship, he told Sarah. Docking Bay 3 is halfway across the station, with bounty hunters flooding in. We'll never make it. Then we fight through. Chief checked his stolen blaster, 43 shots remaining in the power pack. Not enough for sustained combat against professional hunters. He'd need to adapt, scavenge, improvise, standard Spartan protocols for hostile territory. Kira activated her helmet's full combat systems, weapons deploying from concealed mountings in her armor. I'll provide cover. Consider it payment for an entertaining fight. Why help us? Chief asked, already moving toward the exit. Because Mandalorians respect warriors, and because watching you fight the Empire's bounty hunters will be far more entertaining than collecting that bounty myself. They emerged from the fighting pits into chaos. Blaster fire strobed through the marketplace, civilians scattering as armored hunters swept through with military efficiency. Chief's motion tracker identified at least 20 contacts, possibly more, using the crowd as cover. Above the chaos, broadcast on every screen throughout the station, a new bounty notice displayed Chief's armor with updated information. 75,000 credits, dead or alive. Authorized by Imperial intelligence, the price on his head had just increased, and the hunt had officially begun. The marketplace became a war zone in seconds. Chief moved through the chaos with tactical precision, his Spartan training converting panic into navigable terrain. Sarah and Kraltor flanked his left, the Wookiee's bowcaster punching through makeshift cover with devastating accuracy. Kira Ordo held the right flank, her twin Westar 35 pistols spitting crimson death with practiced efficiency. The first bounty hunter, Trandoshan, heavily armored, carrying a heavy blaster rifle, emerged from behind a vendor stall. Chief's stolen blaster came up, 2 shots center mass. The hunter's shields flared, absorbed the plasma, gave Chief the tactical data he needed. Energy shields, military grade. Headshots or sustained fire required. He adjusted aim, fired 3 more shots. The third penetrated, caught the Trandoshan in the throat. The hunter went down gurgling. "Docking Bay 3, 2 kilometers through hostile territory," Sarah shouted over the firefight's cacophony. "We need a better route." Chief's HUD painted the station's layout from what he'd observed during their approach. 3 main corridors connecting the marketplace to the docking levels. All would be covered by bounty hunters who'd studied the station's geography. Standard ambush tactics. "Maintenance tunnels," Chief suggested, spotting service access panels along the cavern walls. "They'll have less coverage there." "Those tunnels aren't rated for combat," Sarah protested, even as she provided covering fire for Kraltor's advance. "One stray blaster bolt could breach the asteroid's structural integrity. Better than fighting through prepared ambush points." Kira's helmet swiveled toward them, her tactical assessment reaching the same conclusion. "He's right. Hunters are predictable. They'll cover main routes, leave service areas underdefended. Mandalorian doctrine. When the enemy expects frontal assault, strike from unexpected angles." A thermal detonator sailed over the barricade they'd taken cover behind. Chief's enhanced reflexes kicked in. He caught the explosive mid-flight, threw it back with strength that sent it arcing over 2 vendor stalls. The detonator exploded among a group of bounty hunters, their shields overloading under the blast's intensity. "Move!" Chief ordered, sprinting toward the nearest maintenance access. His armor's strength amplification tore the panel free, revealing narrow corridors meant for automated maintenance droids. Tight space, confined engagement ranges. Advantage for close-quarters specialists. They plunged into the tunnel network, emergency lighting casting everything in sickly red. Chief took point, his motion tracker painting the confined spaces ahead. Behind them, he heard bounty hunters discovering their escape route, shouting orders in a dozen languages as they gave chase. The tunnels were cramped even by infantry standards. Chief's armored bulk scraped against bulkheads as they navigated, but the confined space meant pursuers couldn't bring numbers to bear. Choke points, defensible positions. Tactical advantage despite being outnumbered. "Contact rear," Kira called out, her sensors detecting movement behind them. Chief stopped, turned, braced against the tunnel walls. When the first bounty hunter rounded the corner, Rhodian, light armor, twin blasters. Chief's stolen weapon put him down with 2 precise shots. The body created an obstacle, forcing those behind to slow, bunch up. Classic fatal funnel scenario. UNSC Close Quarters Doctrine 101. Chief's blaster emptied its power pack on the third hunter. He dropped the weapon, pulled a fallen hunter's vibroblade from its sheath, and adapted. When the next attacker rounded the corner, Chief's Spartan training took over. The blade found the gap between helmet and chest plate, CQB techniques that Oni had drilled into every Spartan super soldier. Efficient, brutal, effective. "Jesus," Sarah breathed, watching Chief work. "You fight like a machine." "I was trained to," Chief said simply, retrieving a functional blaster from the bodies. DL-18, lower quality than Sarah's custom piece but serviceable. He checked the power pack, 60 shots. Better. They pushed deeper into the maintenance network, the sounds of pursuit echoing through metal corridors. Chief's tactical assessment painted a grim picture. 20-plus hunters, coordinated search pattern. Eventually they'd be cornered. They needed to reach the docking bay before the noose tightened. There, Sarah pointed to a junction where the maintenance tunnel intersected with a primary corridor. Through the access grating, they could see the docking level entrance, barely 300 meters away. Between them and escape, open ground, no cover, perfect kill zone. That's a trap, Kira observed, her helmet sensors confirming what they all knew. They'll have snipers covering that approach. Chief studied the tactical situation. Direct assault, suicide. Retreat, untenable with hunters closing from behind. Alternative routes, limited by station geometry. He needed to create an advantage where none existed. His eyes fell on a power junction box, cables running through the walls, carrying electricity to the station's environmental systems, not rated for weapons discharge, vulnerable to overload. How dependent is this station on main power? Chief asked. Sarah followed his gaze, comprehension dawning. Oh no, you're thinking of overloading the grid. That would knock out lighting, life support routing, possibly even gravity in some sections. It would also create chaos, confusion, tactical advantage. It would also kill people if life support fails completely. Chief had already calculated acceptable casualties versus mission success probability. Cold, ruthless, necessary. But this wasn't the Covenant War. These civilians weren't combatants. The equation was different here. Can you trigger a localized overload? He asked instead. Just the docking level. Emergency systems would maintain life support, but tactical lighting would fail. Sarah's expression shifted from horror to grudging respect. Maybe. Kraltor's better with electrical systems, but we'd have maybe 30 seconds before backups engage, and you'd be fighting in complete darkness. I can see in the dark. Chief's VISR system could switch to thermal, sonar, night vision. Most bounty hunters relied on helmet optics that needed ambient light. Tactical advantage. Significant. Kira checked her ammunition reserves. I've got low-light equipment. Won't be ideal, but better than stumbling blind. How do we execute? Kraltor overloads the grid. We use the confusion to sprint for your ship. Anyone who gets in our way, we go through, Kira finished. Direct, simple, suicidal, very Mandalorian. I approve. The Wookiee growled something that Chief's translator rendered as philosophical resignation about humans and their tendency to choose violence over patience. But Kraltor was already accessing the power junction, clawed hands manipulating systems with surprising delicacy. Chief positioned himself at the access grating, ready to breach. His motion tracker painted hostile positions beyond, 4 confirmed, possibly more using scanner-resistant gear. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. They had maybe 2 minutes before bounty hunters pinned them completely. Ready, Kraltor announced, hand hovering over the override. Chief tore the grating free, raising his blaster. Execute! The station's lights died. Emergency lighting flickered, failed, plunged the docking level into absolute darkness. Screams erupted from civilians caught in the sudden blackness. Bounty hunters shouted confused orders, their tactical coordination deteriorating without visual confirmation. Chief's VISR system painted the world in thermal gradients, hot bodies standing out in sharp relief against cool metal. He identified targets, prioritized threats, moved. The DL-18 barked 4 times. 4 thermal signatures cooled rapidly, bodies hitting the deck. Chief was already sprinting, his enhanced physiology eating distance, while bounty hunters fumbled for low-light equipment. Blaster fire strobed through darkness, wild shots seeking targets that moved faster than standard combat doctrine anticipated. Chief felt plasma pass close enough to superheat air beside his helmet, adjusted his path, kept moving. Behind him, Kira's Westars provided covering fire, her Mandalorian training allowing her to fight effectively even in compromised visibility. They reached the Nomad's Gambit with seconds to spare. Sarah hit the boarding ramp controls, the mechanism grinding upward with painful slowness. Chief turned, covering their retreat, his blaster dropping targets with mechanical precision. A new thermal signature appeared, larger, heavily armored, moving with confidence despite the darkness. Chief's threat assessment spiked. This wasn't standard bounty hunter gear. Kelborn, Kira spat the name like a curse. Mandalorian hunter, one of the best. He won't stop until he collects. The figure emerged from darkness, his armor painted in dark crimson. A massive blaster rifle tracking Chief with professional accuracy. When he spoke, his vocoder carried cold amusement. 50,000 credits for the strange one. 10,000 for the traitor Ordo. Not a bad payday. Chief's finger tightened on his blaster's trigger, but Kelborn was already moving, combat reflexes matching Chief's augmented speed. They fired simultaneously, and the station's backup power engaged, flooding the docking bay with harsh white light that destroyed everyone's carefully adapted low-light vision. Chief's visor compensated instantly. His shot caught Kelborn's rifle, melting the barrel. Kelborn's shot went wide, superheating the Gambit's hull plating. "Go!" Sarah screamed from the cockpit. Chief sprinted up the boarding ramp as it sealed, felt the deck lurch beneath him as Sarah executed an emergency launch that violated every atmospheric safety protocol ever written. Through the closing ramp, he saw Kelborn standing in the docking bay, watching them escape. The Mandalorian hunter raised his hand in what might have been respect or promise of future encounter. Then the ramp sealed completely, and the Gambit punched through Rannon Station's atmospheric containment with enough force to trigger hull breach alarms across 3 docking bays. They'd escaped. Barely. But Chief knew with absolute certainty. This was only the beginning. The Nomad's Gambit limped through hyperspace, shield generators whining from accumulated damage and hull plating scored by blaster fire. Chief stood in the cockpit watching impossible light streak past, his armor's diagnostic systems cataloging 17 separate mechanical failures that would have grounded any UNSC vessel. Yet Sarah kept the freighter flying through a combination of skill, improvisation, and what he was learning to recognize as typical Outer Rim stubbornness. "We can't keep running like this," Sarah said, hands moving across controls with practiced efficiency. "The Empire's mobilized 3 Star Destroyers to hunt you. Bounty hunter guilds have your face plastered across every station from here to the core. And now we've got Mandalorian trackers who won't stop until they collect." Kira Ordo, who'd remained aboard after the Rannon Station firefight, leaned against the bulkhead, cleaning her Westar pistols with methodical precision. "She's right. You need to make a choice, Chief. Keep running, and eventually someone gets lucky, or find allies powerful enough to make hunting you more trouble than it's worth." "The rebellion," Sarah suggested, though her tone carried uncertainty. "They've been trying to contact us. Mon Mothma herself sent an encrypted message offering protection in exchange for a meeting." Chief's tactical assessment ran scenarios. The Rebel Alliance represented organized resistance against Imperial authority, potentially valuable allies. But alliance meant obligation, mission parameters defined by someone else's objectives. Spartans followed orders, but only from proper chain of command. And in this galaxy, Chief had no chain of command. "What does the rebellion want from me?" he asked. "Honestly, probably everything. A warrior who can fight like a Force sensitive without being one. Someone the Empire can't predict or manipulate through the Force. You're a propaganda victory and a tactical asset rolled into one impressive package." Sarah adjusted their hyperspace trajectory, buying time before they needed to make decisions. "But they're not slavers. If you help them, they'll help you. Maybe even find scientists who can study your slip-space rupture, figure out if it's repeatable. The possibility of returning home hung in the air like a tangible thing. Chief thought of Earth, of the UNSC, of the war against the Covenant that might still be raging in his universe. Every moment stranded here was a moment he couldn't fight for humanity's survival. But returning home meant understanding the dimensional breach, and understanding required resources, scientific expertise, technology he couldn't access while being hunted. "Where's the meeting?" Chief asked. Sarah pulled up coordinates. Yavin 4, Jungle Moon, ancient temples, current Rebel Alliance headquarters. It's about as safe as anywhere gets when you're fighting the Empire. But Chief, once you walk into that base, you're committing. The rebellion doesn't let valuable assets just walk away. I'm not an asset. I'm a soldier. To them, there's no difference. Chief considered the distinction, recognized its importance. The UNSC had treated Spartans as assets, weapons to be deployed, not people to be valued. Dr. Halsey's genius and ruthlessness had created super soldiers from children, justified by humanity's survival. Chief had never questioned the morality of his existence. But in this galaxy, removed from that context, the reality was harder to ignore. Set course for Yavin 4, Chief decided. But I make no promises beyond attending the meeting. Kira holstered her pistols, helmet tilting with what might have been approval. Smart. Never commit until you've seen all the players at the table. If you want backup for the meeting, I'll come. Mandalorians don't trust easily, but we respect warriors. You've earned that much. They dropped out of hyperspace 2 hours later, Yavin's massive orange-red sphere dominating the viewport. The jungle moon orbited below, emerald green and lush with life. Chief's sensors detected the rebel base immediately. Ancient stone temples converted to military installations, X-wing fighters on patrol routes, ground defenses that looked impressive until compared to UNSC standards. This rebellion was fighting a guerrilla war with determination that reminded Chief of the early Covenant conflict when humanity was desperate and outgunned. The parallel was uncomfortable. Nomad's Gambit. Transmit your identification code and prepare to be escorted to Landing Bay 7. The transmission carried professional military courtesy, but Chief detected the underlying tension. They were expecting him, but trust hadn't been established. Sarah transmitted clearance codes. Within minutes, 4 X-wing fighters flanked their approach. Pilots maintaining perfect formation as they guided the Gambit toward the designated landing zone. Chief watched the pilots work, recognized the skill required to fly that precisely. These weren't amateurs playing rebellion. These were trained soldiers who'd chosen sides in a galactic civil war. The landing bay was carved into the temple's stone foundation, artificial lighting mixing with natural sun filtering through jungle canopy above. As the Gambit's boarding ramp descended, Chief saw the welcoming committee. 24 rebel soldiers in formation, weapons holstered but ready, and at their center stood a woman whose bearing screamed command authority. Mon Mothma. Chief recognized her from the briefing data Vex Rylan had provided. Former senator, rebellion's civilian leadership. Strategic mind that had kept the Alliance alive against overwhelming odds. She wore simple white robes that somehow carried more authority than any military uniform. Beside her stood a man Chief's tactical database couldn't identify. Jedi robes, lightsaber at his hip, presence that made Chief's threat assessment protocols spike despite no overt hostility. Force-sensitive, possibly dangerous. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117, Mon Mothma greeted him formally, her voice carrying across the landing bay with perfect clarity. Welcome to Yavin 4. We have much to discuss. Chief descended the ramp, Sarah and Kira flanking him. The rebel soldiers tensed at the sight of his modified armor, hands moving toward weapons before discipline reasserted control. They'd heard the stories from Lotho Minor and Rannon Station. They knew what he was capable of. "I agree to a meeting," Chief said directly. "Not recruitment." "Understood. Though I hope, after hearing what we have to offer, you'll reconsider that position." Mon Mothma gestured toward the temple's interior. "If you'll follow me, we've prepared a briefing room. Your companions are welcome to join us." They moved through ancient corridors where rebel technology merged awkwardly with millennia-old architecture. Chief's tactical awareness cataloged defensive positions, escape routes, weapons emplacements. The rebels had fortified well, but this temple's design wasn't meant for modern warfare. One sustained Imperial assault could overwhelm these defenses. The briefing room was small, dominated by a holographic projector displaying tactical data. Chief couldn't immediately parse. Mon Mothma activated it, and the galaxy appeared in miniature. Vast red territories marked Imperial control, scattered blue pinpricks representing rebel cells. 3 weeks ago, we intercepted Imperial communications about a spatial anomaly in the Outer Rim, Mon Mothma began. The readings were classified immediately, but our intelligence network managed to acquire fragments. Energy signatures completely foreign to any known technology. Dimensional displacement on a scale that terrified Imperial scientists. The hologram shifted, displaying technical readouts that matched nothing in Chief's experience. But the energy patterns were familiar. Slip-space rupture dynamics, Shaw Fujikawa engine failure cascades. "That was my arrival," Chief confirmed. "Unintentional. My ship was caught in a dimensional breach during combat operations." The Jedi, who'd remained silent until now, spoke with quiet intensity. "I sensed the disturbance in the Force. A void opened where none should exist, and when it closed, something remained, something outside the Force's touch." His eyes studied Chief with uncomfortable perception. "You don't belong to this galaxy's natural order." "No." Chief saw no benefit in deception. "I was fighting a war in my universe when something went wrong. I need to understand the breach, learn if it's repeatable, find a way home." Mon Mothma's expression softened with something approaching sympathy. "We have scientists who might help. Ancient Jedi texts that reference dimensional barriers, resources the Empire suppressed for decades. But in exchange, we need your help with something equally important." Chief had anticipated this. Nothing in warfare was free. "What kind of help?" The hologram shifted again, this time displaying a massive space station under construction, a sphere of impossible scale, bristling with weapons, surrounded by construction fleets that numbered in the thousands. "The Death Star," Mon Mothma said quietly. "The Empire's ultimate weapon, a battle station capable of destroying entire planets. Intelligence suggests it will be operational within weeks, and when it is, the Emperor will use it to crush any system that supports our rebellion." Chief studied the station's specifications with growing unease. Planet-destroying weapons, genocide-scale firepower. The Covenant had glassed planets, but they'd required entire fleets to do it. This station could accomplish the same devastation with a single shot. "You want me to help destroy it," Chief concluded. "We have the station's technical readouts. A rebel cell sacrificed themselves to acquire them. There's a weakness, a thermal exhaust port that leads directly to the main reactor. One precise shot could trigger a chain reaction that destroys the entire station." Mon Mothma's expression was grave. "But reaching that exhaust port requires flying through the station's defensive network. TIE fighters, turbo laser batteries, tractor beams. Our pilots are good, but the Empire's defenses are overwhelming. We need every advantage." "And you think I'm an advantage?" "I think you're a soldier who understands what's at stake when genocide becomes policy. The Empire will use this weapon. Billions will die. unless someone stops them. Chief processed the tactical situation. Attacking a battle station defended by Imperial forces, suicide mission by any reasonable assessment. But the alternative was allowing a weapon of mass extinction to become operational. The parallel to his own universe was exact. Sometimes stopping genocide required impossible odds and acceptable casualties. Spartans were built for impossible odds. "I need to see the technical readouts," Chief said. "Understand the mission parameters. If it's viable, I'll help, but I don't take orders from anyone except recognized command authority." "Fair enough. And in exchange, we'll dedicate our best scientists to studying your dimensional breach. No guarantees, but we'll do everything possible to help you return home." Mon Mothma extended her hand in what Chief recognized as a formal agreement gesture. "Do we have an accord?" Chief looked at the offered hand, thought of the UNSC, of orders followed without question, of children turned into weapons for humanity's survival. Then he thought of Lotho miners burning cantina, civilians killed to eliminate witnesses, an empire that ruled through fear and overwhelming force. Some wars transcended personal allegiance. Some fights mattered regardless of universe. He accepted Mon Mothma's hand. "We have an accord." The briefing room emptied until only Chief, Mon Mothma, and the Jedi remained. The tactical hologram displayed the Death Star's schematics in merciless detail. Hundreds of kilometers of corridors, weapons systems that could vaporize capital ships, and buried deep within its mechanical heart, one critical vulnerability. "The assault is scheduled in 72 hours, Mon Mothma explained, highlighting the approach vector. "Our fleet will emerge from hyperspace here, at the edge of the Yavin system. Gold Squadron and Red Squadron will make the trench run, while our capital ships engage the station's defenses." "Your role should be ground-based," Chief interrupted, studying the schematics with tactical analysis that made Mon Mothma pause mid-sentence. "That exhaust port's a precision target. Starfighter-mounted weapons at high speed? Low probability of success. You need someone to infiltrate the station, plant charges directly in the reactor core." The Jedi leaned forward, interest sharpening. "Infiltrate the Death Star? That's not just suicide. It's impossible. The station has over 1 million personnel, stormtroopers on every level, security systems designed by the Empire's best engineers. Impossible is a relative term. Chief's HUD overlaid tactical routes through the station's infrastructure. Your pilots sacrifice themselves trying to thread a 2-meter target while under fire. Or I get inside, reach the reactor, guarantee detonation. 1 Spartan versus garrison security. Better odds than your current plan." Mon Mothma studied him with the calculating gaze of someone who'd sent thousands to die for the rebellion's survival. "You'd be trapped when the reactor goes critical. Even if you succeeded, there'd be no escape." "There's always an escape. Spartans are trained for hostile exfiltration." Chief traced routes through maintenance corridors, service ducts, escape pods. "Not impossible, just improbable. But you need insertion first. How do I reach the station undetected?" "Captured Imperial shuttle," the Jedi suggested. "We've acquired several. Transmit the proper clearance codes, and you could dock directly in one of the station's hangars." Chief's tactical mind wargamed the scenario. Imperial shuttle, stolen credentials, 1 soldier against a 1-million-man garrison. The infiltration itself was viable. Onai had trained him for operations behind enemy lines. The challenge was the station's scale. Kilometers of corridors, security checkpoints, time constraints measured in the minutes before the station destroyed Yavin 4. "I'll need current security protocols," Chief said. "Station layout updates, real-time intelligence on patrol patterns, and support for exfiltration. Someone monitoring Imperial communications, ready to guide me through changing conditions. Our intelligence operatives can provide that." Mon Mothma activated the hologram's communication systems, connecting to what Chief assumed was the rebellion's command network. But Chief, understand what you're volunteering for. This isn't like Lotho Minor or Rannon Station. The Death Star is the Emperor's pride, defended by his best troops, commanded by officers chosen for absolute loyalty. If you're captured, I won't be captured. Chief's tone carried the absolute certainty of someone who'd never failed a mission. Spartans complete the objective, always. The next 72 hours blurred into preparation. Chief studied the Death Star's schematics until he could navigate them blindfolded, memorized security protocols until he could mimic Imperial procedure perfectly, trained with captured equipment until the unfamiliar technology became instinctive. The Rebellion's technicians modified his armor further, adding Imperial transponder tags, disguising the Mjolnir's distinctive silhouette under stolen stormtrooper plating. Sarah visited him the night before the assault, finding him in the armory conducting final equipment checks. So you're really doing this? Infiltrating the galaxy's most heavily defended space station to blow up a reactor while millions of stormtroopers hunt you. That's the mission. That's insane. Sarah sat on an equipment crate, her usual confidence subdued. I pulled you off Lotho Minor because I thought you might be interesting. Didn't expect you to immediately volunteer for the most dangerous operation in Rebel Alliance history. Chief secured his final equipment check, then turned to face her. In my universe, humanity was facing extinction. Every soldier fought, knowing we might lose, that everything we did might ultimately be meaningless. But we fought anyway because the alternative was surrender. Your rebellion faces similar odds. If this weapon becomes operational, how many planets die before the Empire's satisfied? Dozens, maybe hundreds. Alderaan's already been selected as the demonstration target. 2 billion people, Chief. 2 billion. The number was almost abstract, larger than many individual battles in the Covenant War, smaller than humanity's total casualties across 30 years. But behind the statistics were civilians, families, children who'd never chosen sides in this galactic conflict. Then the mission matters, Chief said simply. And Spartans don't abandon missions that matter. Dawn broke over Yavin 4's jungle canopy with the kind of tropical beauty that seemed fundamentally incompatible with impending warfare. Chief stood in the temple's launch bay, watching rebel pilots conduct pre-flight checks, their faces carrying the tight expressions of people who knew many wouldn't return. Red Leader, a pilot named Garvin Dryce, approached Chief with the confident stride of someone who'd survived too many desperate battles. Heard you're flying solo insertion. Gutsy. Stupid but gutsy. If you pull this off and we somehow both survive, first round's on me. I'll remember that. Chief extended his hand, and the pilot clasped it firmly. May the Force be with you, Chief. Chief boarded the captured Lambda-class shuttle, its interior stripped for stealth operations. No crew, no support, just him, his armor, enough explosives to crack a reactor core, and a mission that would determine whether billions lived or died. The shuttle's engines hummed to life. Chief ran final systems checks, ensured his armor's Imperial transponders were broadcasting properly, verified his stolen clearance codes matched current Death Star security protocols. Everything was as ready as 72 hours of preparation could make it. Mon Mothma's voice crackled through the comm system. Chief, our fleet's about to jump. Once we emerge and engage the station, you'll have approximately 30 minutes before the Death Star's super laser charges. That's your operational window. Understood. And Chief, thank you for choosing to help us. The shuttle launched, climbing through Yavin 4's atmosphere toward the killing ground above. Chief watched the jungle moon fall away, replaced by the vast orange-red sphere of Yavin itself. Somewhere beyond, the Death Star waited, a monument to Imperial power, bristling with enough firepower to sterilize worlds. Chief had faced the Covenant's overwhelming technology, fought battles that should have been impossible, survived scenarios where every tactical model predicted failure. This was different, lonelier. No Spartans at his back, no UNSC fleet providing support. Just one soldier against a space station designed to break rebellions through sheer existential terror. But loneliness was a Spartan's natural state. They'd been trained in isolation, augmented in secret, deployed where regular soldiers couldn't survive. Chief had spent his life being the weapon others pointed at impossible problems. Today was no different. The shuttle punched through into space, and Chief's sensors painted the tactical situation in stark clarity. The rebel fleet emerged from hyperspace, capital ships dwarfed by the Death Star's impossible scale, X-wings and Y-wings forming attack formations. Everything humanity had managed to scrape together for one desperate assault. And dominating everything, the Death Star itself. A moon-sized sphere of metal and malice, its surface crawling with defensive emplacements, its interior housing enough personnel to garrison entire sectors. Chief adjusted his approach vector, transmitting stolen Imperial clearance codes. Imperial Shuttle ST-321 requesting emergency docking clearance. Hyperspace malfunction left us stranded in system. ST-321, transmit your authorization code. Chief uploaded the codes Rebel intelligence had provided. Seconds stretched while Imperial security systems analyzed his credentials, cross-referenced against databases, searched for anomalies that would expose the deception. Authorization confirmed. ST-321, proceed to Hangar Bay 327, and welcome back to Imperial service. The hangar bay's magnetic shield shimmered as Chief's shuttle passed through, artificial gravity pulling the craft toward designated landing coordinates. Through the viewport, he saw stormtroopers in perfect formation, officers conducting inspections, TIE fighters undergoing maintenance. The Empire's military machine functioning with mechanical precision. Chief shut down the shuttle systems, armed his weapons, triggered his armor's active camouflage for the 3 seconds it could sustain before power reserves depleted. 3 seconds. Enough time to exit the shuttle, eliminate immediate threats, reach cover before the camouflage failed. Spartans had accomplished more with less. The boarding ramp descended. Chief moved. 3 stormtroopers went down before they registered threat presence, suppressed shots from his modified blaster, targeting the gaps in plastoid armor with surgical precision. He reached the hangar's maintenance level, his camouflage failing just as he ducked behind a parked TIE fighter. Alarms blared, security protocols activated. The hunt began, but Chief was already moving deeper into the station's mechanical heart, following routes memorized from schematics, adapting to real-world conditions that no tactical model perfectly predicted. 30 minutes until the super laser fired. 30 minutes to reach a reactor buried kilometers beneath ferrocrete and durasteel. Impossible odds, acceptable risk, standard Spartan operational parameters. Behind him, the Death Star's security forces mobilized with military efficiency. Blast doors sealed. Stormtroopers flooded corridors. Officers screamed orders about intruders and security breaches. But Chief had fought through worse. The Covenant had hunted him across burning worlds. The Flood had pursued him through ancient installations. The Empire, for all its power, was just another enemy that needed to learn what happened when they underestimated a Spartan. He moved through the station like a ghost, efficient, lethal, unstoppable. Every corridor brought him closer to the reactor. Every security checkpoint eliminated brought him closer to mission completion. Outside, the rebel fleet engaged Imperial defenses in desperate combat. X-wings died in brilliant flashes. Capital ships traded fire with turbo laser batteries. the galaxy's fate balanced on the edge of a knife. And deep within the Death Star, one soldier carried humanity's hope, both his own and this galaxy's, toward a reactor core that would soon become the Empire's funeral pyre. The reactor core stretched before Chief like a cathedral of pure energy, massive cylinders pulsing with power enough to vaporize planets, cooling systems humming with the sound of contained apocalypse. His armor's radiation warnings screamed danger, but Chief ignored them. Spartans were built to operate in hazardous environments. He moved quickly, placing shaped charges at critical structural points with practiced precision. 12 charges. Synchronized detonation. Chain reaction that would consume the station from within. The technical readouts had been accurate. This reactor's design prioritized raw power over safety redundancies. One catastrophic failure would cascade through every system. "Chief, this is Rebel Command," Mon Mothma's voice crackled through his helmet. "Our fighters are taking heavy casualties. We need that station destroyed now. Charges set, 60 seconds to detonation." Chief activated the timer, then turned toward the maintenance shaft that represented his only exfiltration route. 3 kilometers of vertical ascent, through a station now fully aware of his presence, to reach the hangar where stolen Imperial shuttles waited. 60 seconds. Impossible. But Spartans specialized in impossible. He ran, his armor's strength amplification allowing him to take the maintenance shaft's ladder rungs 3 at a time. Behind him, the charge's countdown ticked towards 0. Above, stormtroopers converged on his position. Chief's HUD painted hostile contacts, calculated engagement priorities, prepared for combat that would determine whether he escaped or died with the station. The charges detonated. Reality became fire and destruction. The Death Star's reactor core breached, its safety systems failing exactly as Chief had calculated, unleashing energy meant to destroy worlds into the station's own infrastructure. Explosions rippled outward through kilometers of corridors, vaporizing everything in their path. Chief felt the shockwave, felt the station begin its death throes, and pushed his armor's capabilities to maximum. The maintenance shaft became a race against cascading destruction. Climb faster than the fireball, reach the hangar before structural collapse sealed all exits. He burst into the hangar bay with 15 seconds to spare, stormtroopers scattering as the floor buckled beneath them. His stolen shuttle sat untouched, its engines still warm from landing. Chief sprinted up the boarding ramp as the hangar's atmosphere began venting into space. The shuttle launched on emergency thrusters, clearing the magnetic shield just as the Death Star's superstructure began collapsing inward. Through the viewport, Chief watched the battle station die, a monument to Imperial power becoming a monument to hubris, its destruction visible across light years. The rebel fleet's cheers flooded the comm channels. They'd won. Against impossible odds, through desperate courage and one Spartan's refusal to accept defeat, they destroyed the Empire's ultimate weapon. Chief set course for Yavin 4, his body finally registering the accumulated damage from the mission. Radiation exposure, combat stress, physical exhaustion that even Spartan augmentations couldn't completely negate. But he'd completed the objective. Spartans always completed the objective. Yavin 4's landing bay erupted in celebration when Chief's shuttle touched down. Rebel soldiers cheered, pilots lifted helmets in salute. Even Mon Mothma allowed herself a rare smile. They'd survived. The Death Star was destroyed. The rebellion had struck a blow that would echo across the galaxy. Chief descended the boarding ramp to find the entire command staff waiting. Mon Mothma stepped forward, her expression carrying gratitude deeper than words. "You saved billions of lives today, Chief. The Alliance owes you a debt we can never fully repay." "You owe me information about dimensional breaches," Chief said directly. "That was the agreement. And we'll honor it." Our scientists are already analyzing the data from your arrival. It will take time, but if there's a way to send you home, we'll find it." Chief nodded, accepting the promise even knowing it might take months or years to fulfill. In the meantime, he was stranded in a galaxy at war, fighting for a cause that wasn't originally his, but had become his responsibility through circumstance and choice. The rebellion celebrated their victory that night. Bonfires in the jungle, stories of the battle shared between pilots who'd survived impossible odds. Chief stood apart, watching the flames, thinking of his own universe and whether the Covenant War still raged in his absence. Sarah found him there, carrying 2 bottles of what she claimed was decent liquor. "You disappeared into a space station, blew up the reactor core, and escaped before the whole thing went nuclear. That's officially the craziest thing I've witnessed, and I've witnessed a lot of crazy." "Standard infiltration mission," Chief said, accepting the bottle. "Standard for you, maybe. For the rest of us, that was legendary." Sarah took a long drink, then studied Chief's profile. "So what now? You've got a galaxy that knows your name, a rebellion that wants you as their champion, and an empire that wants you dead. Where does a Spartan go from here?" Chief thought about the question, about duty and purpose, about fighting wars in someone else's galaxy for reasons that had become personal through shared sacrifice. "Forward," he said finally. "Until I find a way home, I fight for people who need it. That's what soldiers do. And if you never find a way home?" The question hung heavy in the jungle's humid air. Chief didn't have an answer. Perhaps there was no good answer. Sometimes soldiers ended up far from home, fighting wars that never ended, dying on worlds whose names they'd never heard before. But whether in his universe or this one, some principles remained constant. Protect the innocent, fight against tyranny, complete the mission regardless of cost. The Force might bind this galaxy together, but Chief had learned that courage, sacrifice, and determination transcended mystical energy fields. The rebellion's pilots had proven that today, flying into certain death because the alternative was allowing genocide. Spartans understood that calculus perfectly. "Then I keep fighting," Chief said, "until the mission's complete or I can't fight anymore." Sarah raised her bottle in salute. "To fighting the good fight, even when you're stranded in the ass end of a galaxy, far, far away." They drank, and above them, Yavin's massive sphere hung in the night sky, a reminder that this wasn't Earth, wasn't home, but had become the battlefield where Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 would forge a new legend. The Empire would remember the warrior who'd destroyed their ultimate weapon. The rebellion would remember the soldier who'd saved billions. And across the galaxy, in cantinas and command rooms, on star destroyers and hidden bases, people would tell the story of the Spartan who'd arrived from beyond the stars. The Force had shaped this galaxy for millennia, binding all life in its mystical web. But Chief existed outside that web, proving that sometimes the greatest threats and the greatest heroes came from places the Force never touched. His war had followed him across dimensions, and he would fight it, as Spartans always did, until victory or death made the choice irrelevant. The galaxy far, far away would never be the same. May the Force be with you. More stories await.